Monday night, NBC debuted a new government crime thriller called The Blacklist, starring James Spader and Megan Boone. If you're new to my videos, welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. This week I'll be talking about the pilot episode of The Blacklist and commenting on the interesting things that I found significant. We'll also take a look at the characters and this week's name on Raymond Reddington's Blacklist. We've got a lot of material to cover, so without further interruption, let's start the review. Quick episode recap. One of the FBI's top 10 most wanted turned himself in. Reddington was moved to a secure site and made his first demand.
I speak only with Elizabeth Keene.
Elizabeth Keene got an unexpected carpool on her first day on the job.
Washington Field Office. I need you to come with me right away.
Reddington warned that a general's daughter would be kidnapped.
If you don't move quickly, she will die.
Keene and Ressler got to the girl first, but she was still taken. Reddington helped identify key targets within Zamani's operation.
You find the chemist, you'll find Zamani.
Zamani retaliated by attacking Elizabeth's husband.
What else do you know about my plan?
Keene found the general's daughter and got some help from a stranger.
Ужасно! Wait!
Ressler chased down Zamani and eliminated him. And Elizabeth made a startling discovery about her husband. So who are we dealing with here? First and foremost is James Spader as the fugitive Raymond Red Reddington. Reddington attended the Naval Academy where he was a top student until he graduated at age 24 and became an officer on the track to becoming an admiral. He disappeared in 1990 while on his way home to visit his wife and daughter for Christmas. He's off the grid for a couple of years until classified information begins leaking in foreign nations, information that leads directly back to Reddington. It's then that he's identified as a facilitator and deal broker for the criminal underground, selling secrets and trading favors to achieve his goals. The media has dubbed him the concierge of crime. If you watch the pilot, then that all sounded very familiar because you hear Agent Ressler say just about the same thing. Reddington is an enigma. He keeps his cards close to his chest and only reveals what he deems people need to know at the time. He has an unexplained fascination with Elizabeth Keene and treats her like a protege that he's looking to mold. Reddington always speaks with an unnerving amount of familiarity. No matter who he's talking to, he always seems to know more about them than they know about him, and it's clear that Reddington likes it that way. The biggest questions surrounding Raymond Reddington are whose side is he on, and why is Elizabeth Keene so integral to his plan? By her own admission, Megan Boone's character, Elizabeth Keene, is no one special. She's been with the FBI for 4 years and has recently transferred down to D.C. from New York, where she was head of the Mobile Emergency Psych Unit. Elizabeth and her mother were abandoned by Elizabeth's father when she was a little girl, which required her to raise herself, and as a result, she can at times be disagreeable to work with. As far as she knows, Elizabeth has no connection to Raymond Reddington and speculates that he only requested her specifically because of how new she is to being an FBI profiler. Elizabeth lives with her husband Tom and their dog, and the two of them are looking forward to adopt their first child. Elizabeth is a caring wife who is determined not to let her career interfere with her plans of starting a family with Tom. These plans are upended, however, when she is personally requested by Raymond Reddington to serve as his FBI contact. Elizabeth has a scar on her right wrist that she attributes to a fire, but she also says that her father gave it to her. Agent Keene is strong, capable, and calm under pressure. She is quick to act, but can also slow down and make necessary connections to solve the problems she is given. We are sure to get to know Elizabeth Keene very well over the course of the show. Diego Klatanoff, who you may recognize from his role on Homeland as Mike Faber, or the movie Pacific Rim where he played Yancey Beckett, steps into the shoes of veteran FBI agent Donald Ressler. Ressler has been working Reddington's case for years, but with the criminal's sudden surrender and demand to speak only with rookie agent Elizabeth Keene, Ressler's involvement in the case has changed significantly. Agent Ressler is not pleased at the prospect of having to play sidekick to a junior agent, but his professionalism and discipline help ensure that even if he doesn't like the job, he will still see it done. Ressler lacks Keen's ability to think abstractly, preferring to keep his information organized and logical. It's that by-the-books thinking that makes Agent Ressler a good foil to Agent Keen's more psychological approach. Harry Lennox, another TV and movie actor from such titles as Man of Steel, Dollhouse, and 24, plays FBI Assistant Director of Counterterrorism Harold Cooper. We aren't given a lot of background on Assistant Director Cooper, but from the different interactions that the characters have with him, we see that he's a calm, decisive man. Cooper has a bit of a sense of humor, but he doesn't take his responsibilities lightly. His willingness to go along with Reddington's various demands show that Cooper isn't so by the books as Ressler and able to see the benefit of gambling with Reddington. Elizabeth's husband, Tom, is played by Ryan Eggold, former 90210 cast member. Tom is an easygoing young man, eager to start a family with his wife. It's not said outright what Tom does for a living, but I can only assume that he works in education somehow, considering that he's wearing a t-shirt that says Washington, D.C. Association for Education, and his first appointment for the day is a field trip planning committee. Tom is by all appearances a really good guy, but at the end of the pilot, Elizabeth makes a discovery that reveals Tom is not all that he seems. This week's name from the blacklist is Ranko Zamani, a Serbian terrorist responsible for the 1986 attack on the U.S. Embassy in Damascus, the 1997 kidnapping of 6 foreign nationals from the French consulate in Algiers, and the 2002 breach of the Krung Thai Bank in Bangkok. Zamani is a man driven by need for revenge after his family was killed in the aftermath of the bombing of a chemical weapons factory in Bosnia, an attack ordered by Daniel Riker, a U.S. military officer aiding native troops. Zamani entered the country with Reddington's help and ordered the kidnapping of General Riker's daughter in order to use her to deliver a chemical weapon to the Washington, D.C. zoo. Zamani's plan was to detonate the device, thereby poisoning the children attending the zoo and creating a legacy that will be remembered for decades. Zamani also attacked and severely wounded Elizabeth's husband Tom at the request of Raymond Reddington and led Agent Ressler off of Reddington's trail by taking the RFID tracker from his shoulder. Zamani was cornered by Ressler on a rooftop and killed after being shot twice in the chest and falling to the street below. Zamani's device was disarmed through Reddington's intervention, thus eliminating the threat Zamani posed. Zamani was an interesting villain to begin with. He walked an odd line of being both nefarious and sympathetic. Despicable for wanting to poison so many innocents, but understandable because of his personal history of loss and sickness at the hands of the U.S. military. Where the blacklist is bound to have a slew of one-off antagonists, I didn't expect Zamani to stand out as special or interesting, but I like what the writers did with his motivations. They made a character with more than one dimension, and that's commendable. I'm also glad that Zamani didn't go full Bond villain on this one. His plan was focused and reasonable, and if not for the specific intervention of Reddington, probably would have succeeded. Enough about the characters, let's get into the show itself. The pilot opened with Reddington turning himself in to the FBI. The first thing I really noticed about the blacklist is how stylish it all is. Spader is such a cool character that it classes up the whole production. Reddington's smarmy demeanor is a great contrast to the stark white interior of the FBI lobby, especially once the alarm was raised and the armed guards advanced on him. Reddington was moved to a secure location and placed inside a glass prison because, if the Silence of the Lambs, X2, the Avengers, Skyfall, and Star Trek Into Darkness have taught us anything, you put the bad guy in a glass prison to keep him contained. I will admit that the cell used to hold Reddington was pretty cool, though. Another element of style that makes the show stand out from the others. With the arrival of Assistant Director Harold Cooper, Reddington began with his first condition, that he would only speak with Elizabeth Keen.
Who the hell's Elizabeth Keen?
Elizabeth's introduction was a bit of a tonal shift from all the very serious grit of the scenes before it. The life that Tom and Liz live together seems quaint and enjoyable. They're two young professionals looking to adopt and enjoying each new day that comes to them. The writers did a good job of summing up this marriage in only a few short scenes and did us the service of showing, not telling us how these two get along. The final line in particular that Liz says to Tom is a knockout punch of a transition.
Babe, I don't think I'm going to need to take the car.
You may have guessed this from watching the episode on Monday night, but Megan Boone actually comes from a comedic acting background. Liz was brought by Agent Ressler to Assistant Director Cooper's office and briefed on the situation at hand. I appreciated the inclusion of this scene because it gave us a chance to see Cooper's unique leadership style. We're not really told anything about the Assistant Director, but this scene shows us what kind of man he is, as well as hinting at the ideological differences between Keen and Ressler. Their meeting concluded, Liz was brought to meet Raymond Reddington. I really like the pairing of Elizabeth and Reddington. There's a natural chemistry between them, and that really comes out when they get to sit and just exchange dialogue. It's in this scene that Reddington revealed Zamani's plot to kidnap General Riker's daughter, and that really set the action in motion. Before Liz was able to get going, however, Reddington made reference to her father being a career criminal. This is a good spot as any to launch into this. The Blacklist is trying really hard to make it seem like Raymond Reddington is Elizabeth Keene's estranged father. They dropped a number of hints over the course of the hour, and I have to come right out and say that I don't believe a word of it. Frankly, they made it too obvious. For that to be the situation would make it all too simple. It would be all too easy. Maybe it's that I don't trust coincidences, maybe it's that I don't trust Reddington, but there's got to be more to the story here. Maybe Liz's father worked with Reddington, or perhaps he's her uncle or something and pulled her father away from his family. But to have them line up so perfectly like that, it's just too much for me to believe. I don't want Reddington to be her father. Acting on Reddington's information, Cooper dispatched Keene and Ressler to find the General's daughter. They found her safe at a dance studio and began to bring her home, but were stopped on a bridge and forced to turn around. That is when the abduction happened. The action scene on the bridge was really fun to watch. I liked how fast everything happened. It was very well timed and very well executed heist, which made it clear that these aren't some two-bit amateurs that we're dealing with. The efficiency that the henchmen showed lent gravity to the threat posed by Ranko Zamani. I can't help but wonder, though, what would have happened if the FBI hadn't picked up the girl? Was that bridge the only way the General would have gone after picking up his daughter from dance? What if they had gone a different way altogether? It seems to me that Zamani's plan hinged on Reddington sending the FBI to get the girl. There's a web of cause and effect here that tangles the more I struggle to comprehend it. I'm not going to dwell on that too much just yet. There will be plenty of time for that later. With the girl taken by Zamani's men, Liz returned to Reddington for more information. With his help, the FBI was able to apprehend a few minor players in the grand scheme, but that action proved only to provoke Zamani as he paid Liz a visit in her home.
Sit down.
The discovery of Tom beaten and tied to a chair was certainly a surprise, since this is the first we see of Zamani in person. But in hindsight, this scene is probably the most important of them all. After Tom was taken to the hospital and Liz paid Reddington a visit in his hotel room, we're left with Liz trying to clean up the bloodstains from the attack. It's those bloodstains that cause her to cut up the carpet at the end of the episode and discover the box with all of her husband's secret things inside. Now, the first thing that came to mind when they revealed the cash and passports was that Tom is really a spy, not a schoolteacher or something. But the more I think about it, the more I wonder whether Tom was more than that. There's a possibility there that Tom has, for years, been a plant from Reddington, put in place to spy on her and feed him information. Of course, he could be a spy for anyone, really, but Reddington would make the most sense. Unfortunately, I'm not sure we're going to get an answer from Tom as long as he's lying in a hospital bed. Reddington, on the other hand, not one to just lie back and let things happen around him, escaped from the hospital where he'd been held thanks to the assistant that we saw at the beginning of the episode and went to meet Zamani. The dialogue they share revealed that Reddington sent Zamani to attack Tom and the major details of Zamani's plan. At this point, the episode divided into two chases, Ressler chasing after Zamani and Keene searching for the General's daughter. We've already talked about what Ressler does, so let's stick with Keene. Keene found the General's daughter strapped to a bomb, and Reddington called her to let her know that a friend was coming to help.
Your friend? What friend?
The addition of the Ukrainian bomb diffuser seemed a little random to me at first, but when you're dealing with someone like Reddington, you're bound to see people coming out of the woodwork from all over the place. Even though this stranger got the job done, it did feel a little bit like a Deus Ex Machina. The pilot wrapped with Cooper, Ressler, and Reddington in an FBI conference room discussing the events of the day. It was good that this scene set things up for future episodes, but as an AV guy, I was a little distracted by the insignia on the screen behind Reddington. Now, for my day job, I work at a community college where I serve as the head of audiovisual services, one of my responsibilities being maintaining the projectors. And when I see a projector left on just for the sakes of having it on, it tends to get to me. I mean, I'm to believe that the FBI has this big conference room and they just leave the projector on so they can have an insignia on the wall? Ugh, the waste! Granted, projector bulbs can last hundreds of hours, but to just have the unit burning sun up to sundown is just unreasonable. It would be easier to put a decal on the wall. They'd save money in the long run. You know what? It's just a show. It's not real. I can get over it. The Blacklist did a good job of establishing their universe and giving us some characters to latch onto. As I mentioned before, I think James Spader is charming as all get out here. He's smart, dangerous, and totally in control. This is why you call in a big name like Spader to hook people on your pilot. That's not to say Megan Boone wasn't great as well. I really like Elizabeth Keen. She's intelligent, creator, and might I add, gorgeous. The mystery surrounding those two is intriguing, and to say nothing of the mystery behind who her husband really is. I like Diego Klatanoff as the by-the-books FBI agent. I have a feeling we'll get some really good scenes between Keen and Ressler with some snappy dialogue in the weeks ahead. I'm also really digging Harry Lennox as Harold Cooper. I will be interesting to see how he starts treating Reddington the longer they work on this list. All in all, I'm going to give the pilot of The Blacklist a thumbs up. If you're not watching it, you should be. And if you are watching it, be sure to get your friends in on this action. It's worth your time. As always, please comment below to keep the conversation going. Subscribe to my channel for more of these weekly reviews of The Blacklist, and follow me on Twitter to see what I have to say during each episode. So until next week, I'm Rick D, and thank you for watching.